our most recent creation is AI, right? And I know it's really just a bunch of like linear math, but the further we push it, the more human-like it becomes. And I feel like at that point, I'm afraid that we're trying to push like our ability to create a human-like thing to its limit.
We're not anywhere near there, and we will never be close to that, I can promise you. We're having a tough enough time as it is to try and start life in the lab. And we'll never get to that point either, because it's a scientist who's trying to start that life, who, oh, by the way, has life, who was given life by our creator. So this idea, whether it's a robot or a scientist in his nice little white coat in the lab, creating life or somehow having God-like abilities in the future, not even close. In our own human ego, that was shown most beautifully right out of Genesis 11, the Tower of Babel, we try and get there and pretend like we're there, but we will never ultimately be there. We've seen failure upon failure over and over again to try and get there. Even Alexander the Great unfortunately failed. Even though he thought he was going to win, Hitler failed, thought he was going to get there. So this, though, secondly, brings up a great point that gets back to our discussion, which is why human beings have value and robots don't. Because we have souls. Yes, we have value because we're relational, physical beings as well, but really God's about your soul, the self. When you speak about, hey, myself, hey, it's me, it's I, what are you talking about? If you're an atheist, then there's no soul, there's no immaterial, you're just talking about your body. So just say, it's just my body. There's no real innate me or soul or selfhood. There's no image of God in me, that's for sure. So you treat your body, you sleep around, get as many STDs as you'd like. If you want to do that, man, you go right ahead. You go right ahead and beat up that kid who's getting in your way, or that guy who's gonna get the job over you. He's just a body. He's no immortal soul. He's just a physical body who's gonna be here if he's lucky 70 years. That's it. So robots come in and there's some nice machinery, they can do some nice stuff, but they'll never have souls. And we know one of the biggest pieces of evidence for there being a God is we know we're beyond just robots. We are not simply robots with flesh on us, right? We are beyond that. We have souls. We have bodies, but we're intricate, we're nuanced. We have spirits. We have minds beyond a brain. We have consciousness beyond a brain. We have rational thinking. We have free will. All of these immaterial things connecting us to a spiritual realm beyond just our physical makeup.
How is the concept of eternal suffering fair? Because like, I don't know, that seems like the ultimate, well, like I think a lot of the things in the Christian religion is good and there's a lot of good teachings. That also seems like the ultimate, like, this is going to sound pretty negative, but it seems like the ultimate fear-mongering technique is to say, if you don't believe in our religion, you have eternal suffering, it's just going to be permanent, there's nothing you can do. So that kind of doesn't seem fair to me, that someone can suffer forever, like literally infinitely longer than your life on earth, you're going to suffer for because you did something wrong, because you didn't accept Christ, even if you lived a good life, in a relative way, obviously, right? Because you're not going to have the exact morals that a Christian would. It's going to be more relative. But still, that is the part that I think I struggle with the most.
The fear of hell.
Yeah, the fear of hell and the idea that it's fair to punish someone for eternity. Like when someone, not that, our justice system is perfect, but when someone steals or someone kills, they go to jail for a finite amount of time. We don't say, okay, you're going to jail forever.
Or they get the death penalty.
Yeah, exactly.
That's more than finite.
That's true. but you know what I mean, though. Like, you know what I'm getting at. So just what's your response?
Okay, great. I think a lot of what you're getting on hell is probably coming from Dan Brown, the Da Vinci Code. So don't listen to any of it. Look right inside what Jesus Christ talks about in that great book, the Bible. What he says in Luke chapter 16, the rich man and Lazarus. All right, the rich man is in hell. He is not in hell because of some fear tactic. Or nobody's in heaven because of some fear tactic. Now, oddly enough, it's an interesting thing that you bring up, though, because there are fire and brimstones that I believe hit this campus, right? And a lot of what they're preaching is turn or burn. So there's type of fear tactic in there. Yeah. Well, I don't think all of that is horrible necessarily. Yeah, hell's a really bad place. It's okay to have a healthy fear of hell and evil. I think everybody should, right? To an extent. But the main thing is should not be, you're right, it should not be stick, stick, stick. No, heaven is primarily carrot in the sense of God is saying that I'm the ultimate of all goodness, love, and kindness. He's attracting us to him, and we want to share in that. But Luke chapter 16, I want you to read it tonight if you have time. I know you're probably a busy man. But Luke chapter 16, the rich man wants to be in hell even though he's suffering. He never says, get me out of here, Father Abraham. He doesn't want his relatives to come, but then what do we get? Well, they have the prophets and plenty enough evidence and desires either to come here or not. So you got to get that clear. This gets back to the justice and goodness of God. He's saying, If you want to be a rich man, so your whole identity is just in your money and wealth, well, then that's your God, and you end up apart from the source of all goodness, and it's wealth. Okay, where I'm from, 2 hours away, I can promise you, probably 90% of my town, their God is wealth. And that's why the divorce rate is so high. That's why there's so many open marriages. That's why there's so many kids who basically are abandoned, because so many dads and moms are living for the American dollar. So we see the consequences of if wealth is your God and how that becomes hell on earth and then hell eternally. If we understand what Jesus clearly talks about hell, then all of a sudden it makes a lot of sense that he's not the jealous boyfriend type, which is, hey, I'm coming after you no matter what. Even if you want to reject me and go to your own type of hell, I'm still coming after you. And you don't have any free will in the matter. That's the jealous boyfriend type, right? And eventually you're going to get a restraining order on that type. Instead, the loving type is not the jealous boyfriend type. It's, okay, you want to break up with me, I'm going to let you go your own way. That's loving you by giving you that free choice.
In Matthew, Jesus says, blessed are the peacemakers. But then later in that chapter, he says, do not assume that I have come for peace, for it is not peace. I will not bring peace, I will bring a sword. And then even in like my own interpretation of reading the Bible, like Ephesians 2:8, Jesus says, for it is by grace you've been saved through faith, and this is not by yourselves, it is a gift of God.
Yeah.
For it is not by works, so we may not boast. But I think it's James 2:17, where it says, faith without works is dead, is death. So I guess my question is, like, how do we interpret, like as Christians, parts of the Bible that we seem are contradictory?
Excellent question. All right, so for 2,000 years, people have been working through biblical contradictions. But there's not been a huge contradiction that has ever been left unturned in a way where it hasn't been worked through. And so one of them is, I came to bring a sword. I came to turn brother against brother. All right, what is he saying? Well, he's saying there, it's right related to when he talks about, unless you hate your father and mother, you cannot be my disciple. Let the dead bury their own dead. I came to bring a sword to separate. Well, what he's talking about is radical discipleship, radical following of him, which is going to turn somebody away. I mean, if you grew up in a Hindu home or a Muslim home or atheistic home, if you come to know Christ, that's exactly what he's saying. He's bringing a sword in such a way where he's saying, there's going to be a radical departure from my old way of life to my new way of life of following him. Radical departure. So when he's saying, bring a sword, when he's saying, let the dead bury their own dead, when he's saying, unless you hate your parents, all right, he's coming and saying, love your enemies. Now he's saying, hate your parents? Contradiction? No, not at all. He's saying, pale in comparison to how much you love me, it'll look like hating your parents. But obviously the 10 Commandments is honor your father and mother, one of the top 10 Commandments. So he's not contradicting himself. So you got to look within, again, it gets back to paradox. It gets back to parables. How is he speaking? What's the context? Crucial interpretation.
Right now, it seems like a lot of the argument is basically revolving around, can we be moral people independent of a belief in Christian theology? And can we frame morality in more secular terms? So basically, I'm kind of curious, given this hypothetical character who, to me at least, seems intuitively plausible, how could you then make the case that Christianity is an imperative, something that everybody should adopt, instead of just a flavor, a choice, a way of approaching morality?
One of the pieces of evidence for God is that he is outside of space and time, and just like there's creative mathematical laws, there's also creative moral laws, which are outside of space and time, saying that you should always treat this woman with respect and dignity. Not just when you feel like it, not just when your culture says to, not just when the powerful says to, but you should always, because there's a law above the law of objective morality. So I'm not saying, yeah, let's just all be truth seekers and just decide to become Christian because the Christian theology is great. No, you can be a different type of ethical system. I don't think you could be as great as Christianity because Jesus Christ did say love your enemy, and no ethical system went that far. So in that sense, maybe. But no, I bring any ethical system. I want more good people here. Yeah.
But can you have that within you independent of being Christian? Like
you cannot have that in you independent of having some type of connection to being created in God's image. No, it's because God has created you in his image. You're more than just a moist robot. You're more than just dancing to your own DNA.
I agree.
You're more than just determined by your parents' genes. You have influence from all those, but you're not determined by them.
I might be mistaken in making this point, but it seems like whenever somebody acts like morally, in a morally righteous way, you say that's Christian morality, right? But my understanding of morality is that it exists independently of Christian morality. I mean, morality has existed from before Christianity even existed.
Yep.
And so basically, like, I'm not sure if I'm like quite making sense, but
Oh,
it
you are.
seems like
Yeah.
here you're trying to promote Christianity, but would you say your first and foremost mission is like promoting ethical behavior, or like would you actually just prefer if everybody was Christian specifically?
No, I don't want you to just be a Christian just because it's nice ethics and because Christianity helps you to look at yourself better. No, I want you to become Christian in the sense of knowing Christ and accepting him as your personal savior and closest friend and worshiping him rather than any created thing, and then having eternal life with him based off of that relationship. Not a proponent of utilitarian ethics, not a proponent of Oprah's ethics or Tony Robbins or any type of life coach. No, that's not me. I got friends who do that. That's just not me. That's not how I tick. And that, God bless them, that's great. But no, that's not what I'm talking about at all. There was morality before Christianity, you're exactly right. And I believe that came from the Judeo-Christian God. Now, through Jesus Christ, what he taught is what Robert Coles, one of the top Harvard professors, said, that all ethical teachings are simply footnotes to the Sermon on the Mount in the Bible. Simply footnotes. That's Robert Coles at Harvard. He said that. So, there were good people before any Christian teachings, but Christ came and taught as one with authority. What does that mean? It means somebody who taught a new type of goodness, rights, wrong, character that nobody had ever heard of before. That's why all the rabbis were shocked. They were like, what is this new thinking? Turn the other cheek, love your enemy, sacrifice for the hurting, human rights. None of this makes any sense. An unconditionally loving God, that was a huge one. That had never been in existence before. So many of these things were new. But you're right, in terms of a moral understanding, no, I believe all humans are created in God's image. So we had moral understanding before Christianity, even Christ came on the scene.
There are a lot of agnostics and atheists that really engage honestly with the question of God. And no matter what, they just sort of can't be convinced of his existence or anything like that. Like sort of the Sam Harrises, the Alex O'Connors, the Graham Hoppies, people like that. And I sort of wonder if it really is the case that they try so hard and they just can't be convinced of it. Where's the justice in the sense that they get sent to eternal damnation for that skepticism?
All right, well, I sat with Alex O'Connor. I think he's okay with me saying this. I sat with Alex O'Connor. I drove him to the train station after our time together. He flew all the way out from the UK to do a podcast with us in Connecticut, which was very kind of him. So I drive him down the street to the train station. We sit in my car for 15, 20 minutes. And I finally say, Alex, so what's it going to take for you to become a Christian? You know, I don't want a notch on my belt. I've never done that where it's like, oh, want another one. This is just for you and your own sake and your own relationship with God and what you're going to do with Christ. And he sat there and waited for 10, 15 seconds. And then he said, a revelation. And he said it in kind of a deep, like almost sorrowful tone. Like he wasn't excited or happy at all in saying it. And so I think right there it shows his struggle, and so many atheists and agnostics struggle with like, am I really holding the God of the universe who created this whole cosmos and me? Am I really going to hold him to the point of saying, unless you reveal yourself to me physically right here as a manifestation the way I want it, then I will worship you and accept you? Is that fair? Like really, is that fair? Is not what he's given us in general revelation through the starry skies like Descartes talked about, and the beauty of above, the moral conscience within that Dostoevsky talked about, that Paul talked about? Is it not his word, the creativity and beauty of his word? Is it not the access of the Holy Spirit? Is it not the church and fellow believers and the beauty of what the Christian faith at large has done for, whether it's creating hospitals or abolishing slavery, and the beauty from within? Are all these things, you start to put them together, is that not enough evidence? Maybe it's not enough, but then you tell me what it is enough evidence. And one of them who said to me personally one-on-one, a revelation, I asked back, all right, well, what does that revelation look like? What does it have to be like? I don't know. So they start to move the goalposts. All right, well, you told me you need this type of evidence. Now I'm saying, okay, what specifically does it look like? And you say, I don't know. And now next year, you're going to tell me Richard Dawkins, Originally, it was spell my name in the skies, Richard, I exist, believe in me. But now this year, you're saying that wouldn't be enough because you'd say you were hallucinating, moving the goalposts. So it's innate within every human being to want to wiggle out and say, God, I need more. God, I need more. So for the same reason that a criminal doesn't find the cops, the same reason for an atheist who doesn't find God. They're running away. Whether they realize that or not. I think everything, even, again, I'm not setting myself up as a moral superior, I can promise you. Because I run away just as much, even as a Christian now, as an atheist does in my mind. At times I hate God's moral law because I want to live my own way, to my own hedonistic type of pleasures. And yet God always calls me back to, are you sure? Are you sure you want to live that way? Because that leads to destruction so frequently.
I could say something along the lines of, God knows of my skepticism. He knows that I'm going to be skeptical in the sense that he's almost, I don't want to say misleading me, but he allows me to walk myself into damnation, knowing that I'm going to question his existence. And in a sense, that's not fair. I think that's what they would say in response to that.
And I would say, you better study Jesus Christ a little bit more. God is not walking us into damnation. I mean, how is Jesus Christ meeting people? John chapter 3, Nicodemus, a religious leader who would have been very far from him, a Jew, leader of the Sanhedrin, well, he comes and challenges him and says, you must be born again, and born again in such a way where your identity is found in something outside of just your pedigree as a leader in the Jewish ruling council. Then he comes to the woman in John chapter 4, though. She's an outcast, so not the in type like Nicodemus, religiously in. She's the outcast. She's a prostitute, basically. And he comes to her gently, kindly, graciously, meets her where she's at, but doesn't leave her where she's at. Still calls her out of her sin to a new type of life. And so is it that Jesus Christ? I mean, we could go on with case studies throughout the New Testament. I just think that they have Jesus wrong then. So if you're going to give the God of the universe a fair shake, I hope you honestly read who he is in the Bible, because that's not the Jesus that I read.